Author Toni Morrison said, if there's a book you really want to read, but it hasn't been written yet, then you must write it. Well, we're going to meet a man who essentially did just that with a website. That's next on Green Country Perspectives. Hello everyone, I'm Sam Jones. Tulsa TV Memories is a website dedicated to the history of broadcasting in Tulsa and to the history of great restaurants, amusement parks, pop culture icons, landmarks, and the many great personalities who make up the history of Tulsa. It was all started by a man with absolutely no background in media or broadcasting, and yet he plays host to a continuous party, a party where the guests drift in and out of the conversational range, where they will. The site is a repository of things that we've loved and lost, and it's a meeting place for an eclectic cross-section of broadcasters and audience. Our guest is the webmaster of Tulsa TV Memories, Mike Ranson. Mike, good to have you with us.
Good to meet you, Sam.
Good to have you here, lad. I'm a major fan, and I don't know that much about the site. Before we get into it, though, a little bit about you. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Tulsa. I grew up in the vicinity of the Admiral Twin Drive-In, and so I went to elementary school at Mitchell and McKinley. Then we moved out east to, I went to Lewis and Clark Junior High out there, and then East Central High School. And then I went to University of Oklahoma for 4 years.
Married, family?
I'm married.
Children?
No, no children.
I have to tell you, the idea, the concept behind this is limitless, and if I understand what you're doing correctly, it's going to be an ongoing project, which means history is still being written, and you're there to make note of it.
I've been doing it almost 11 years now.
Well, where did the idea come from?
Well, I started, my future wife is a realtor, Gay Brown, and she asked me to create a website for her at that time, and that was pretty early on. And I was trying to think of a way to distinguish her site from the others. And I'd read this book called Positioning a long time ago, an advertising book. And the book talked about how IBM, as the leader of the computer industry, didn't toot their horn about IBM. They talked about the computer industry and so forth. So I thought, well, maybe for a realtor site, you talk about Tulsa, you boost Tulsa. So I did a little more than put links to various Tulsa things on the site. And I think what happened is I was looking for something to do myself, and I didn't want to do another site like Star Trek or one of those things. So that kind of got me to thinking about more local interest kind of things. And I had been on the Mazeppa show just by chance one time, and so I just got the idea to start with that. And I put out a fairly minimal amount of material to start with, and I guess I was hoping, well, people will maybe send me articles and things. But then it was called the guest book, now the group blog. So it means that people can contribute their own writing to it. And it wound up being more like more of a patchwork quilt. You know, people come in and say their bit, and at that time I was just trying to put things into various pages where they made sense. But most of it is written by other people. I've written a number of pieces for the site, but the real interesting thing to me is you know, what other people are contributing to the site. Sure.
It strikes me, and correct me if I'm wrong here, that this came to be a passion and now is almost a full-time hobby. Am I on the right track?
Well, I've gotten my methods down to where it's not doesn't consume that much time per se. I check in every day and see what's happened, and when I think of something, I put it out there, and sometimes a topic will be suggested by a reader, and sometimes it just balloons up from that. But I kind of like it to be just an improvisation, something that I think of or someone else does.
It's interesting, almost come to the dance and you start it. That's a really nice concept. You take on not just radio and television, but you take on icons of architecture, buildings in many cases that are no longer here, things that have gone by the wayside. Are you still formulating where you're going to take it or how you're going to open the door to it, or do you let the folks that come into your site do that?
Mostly the latter. From the beginning, it's been more than just television. I think the second thing I wrote had to do with the old liquor by the drink club cards, where in Oklahoma you had to sign up to be a member of a club, and then you bring in liquor and so forth. Anyway, I had a few of those cards, and I just thought that was an interesting Tulsa thing to put out. And so from the beginning, it's been more of a cluster or cloud of topics that relate to broadcasting and also pop culture type things.
There have been so many people who have passed through the portals of broadcasting here that went on to do great things. Some also passed through who were great and just quietly left, and others who have passed and are no longer with us. How in the world have you managed to keep track?
Well, I just let the site do it for me. I just organize things as I go, and I do have a pretty good memory of everything that's at least been touched on the site. So like any other reader, I might, if a topic comes up, I'll search my own site and realize, oh, I have this, and this about it. So I don't really plan anything. I just, like I say, kind of let that happen, and then as topics coalesce out of that, then I present them.
When Dale, our director, producer, was telling us about this, telling me about it, they had to lock me out of the control room because all of a sudden I'm going, hey, what about this? Can we do this? What about, can we get that on? What about? And we have your web page, your main page, I think, where we can show it to the folks at home. But the possibilities of what could end up on this site are endless. And what you essentially have done is what we said in the beginning about if there's a book you want to read, but it hasn't been written, you're in the process of doing that by holding up for everyone that logs in an opportunity to look back in time.
I love the aspect, it's kind of a dynamic source of information. If something crosses my mind that I'm interested in, I can just write something about it. And a lot of times people who have more direct knowledge of it write in about it, and it just snowballs from there.
Things that come to mind here. Now that's the opening of the website. Am I correct on that? And utilizing the various links there, you can just go, I guess, anywhere.
Yeah, I do have some organization in what I call channel changers, but a lot of it is just interlinked. If a topic is mentioned in the course of someone's comments, I may create a link in that back to the thing that they refer to, and it might be an entire page, or it might just be someone else's pertinent comment. So I try to make it to where when you're reading this, if some aspect of it interests you, then you can click that part of it and go immediately to that.
I know at one time in Oklahoma we had, I think, fully functional, there were 70 black-owned and operated newspapers in this state. They had at least 5 in this immediate area prior to the Tulsa race riot. Has anyone come forward that can document any of their backgrounds for you yet?
No, it seems like that predates most of the topics covered on my site. I'd say as far back as it's gone has been, say, the 30s or so. If anyone has anything they want to say about that, they're perfectly welcome to come on, because the 30s, of course, are beyond my range too, but I've got a lot of interesting things from the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Yeah, but see, you're just a young puppy.
Yeah.
Old guys like me, we know about those things. The range, for example, of athletes, the fact that Walter Cronkite worked here briefly, I mean, on and on. Hugh Downs, made it through. It just staggers your imagination when you think about a town as small, and really it is a small town. Tulsa is a small town, but a strong town. And when you think of all the folks that either came through working or started here and grew, it begins to stagger the imagination.